Hello and welcome to the Learning Love Podcast. I'm Dr. Mark A. Hicks, author of the book Learning Love. It is possible to build the healthy, happy, thriving relationships you have always wanted. So let's spend some time learning love. Love is the answer. Now all we have to do is explore all the questions. And today we are looking at the secret to healthy outrage. We know there's a lot of outrage out there. We live in the outrage culture. All you have to do is scroll through social media and see there's plenty of outrage. And there are things to be angry about. So I don't want to say we need to stop being angry. That's just not realistic. There are things in the world to be angry about. And so let's just admit that up front. If we can look at some of the horrific things that go on in the world and not be upset, not be angry, not be frustrated, and not want to bring change, then we're not paying attention. Or somehow we've just lost touch, or we've lost the sense of humanity if we can look at some of the horrible things that happen and not be angry. But how do we do that in a healthy way? The problem that I see is not that we have outrage, it's that we have such unhealthy outrage. It's not that we have anger against the bad things that go on in the world, it's that we do it in such an unhealthy way. And this is true in our families, in our communities, in our nation, in our world. This applies across the board. Anger is a legitimate emotion that we feel when things are wrong, when there is injustice, when things are just not as they need to be. If people are being harmed in some way, if we are being harmed in some way, then anger is a legitimate way to feel. But how do we do that in a healthy way? There is a secret to living out healthy outrage. And when we do that, we build better relationships, we build better families, we deal with the issues at hand, so we have better communities, a better nation, better world. So let's get into what is the secret. If we're going to have anger, if we're going to have outrage, what is the secret to having healthy outrage? How do we deal with our anger in a healthy way? There is a secret to it, and it's understanding this. Anger is a signal, not a strategy. Anger is never a strategy. It doesn't work if we use it as a strategy. If we think we're going to bring change because we're angry, that's not going to work. What we tend to do is to lash out. We have a lot of yelling and screaming. We might even have violent reactions. Now, I'm not going to say that that's never called for, all right? If somebody breaks into your home with dangerous intent, it's time to fight, okay? I'm not going to say that outbursts of anger are never, ever called for. It's time to fight when your life is in danger in that case. It's time to fight for your life. There are times, sadly, and I hate to say this, there are times in our history that we can see war was necessary. It's sad. I wish we didn't have that in the world, but there are times it is necessary. I'm not going to rule out that a knee-jerk reaction in anger and an outlash is necessary, but those are extreme examples. If we're living that as a lifestyle, if we're living that as a culture, that's not going to work. That is not going to bring about the kind of change that we want. When we are using anger as a strategy, outside of the most extreme examples, if that is the way we approach things of life that we don't like, then we're never going to make the kind of changes that we actually need. Anger is not a strategy. Also, when we're using it as a strategy, very often we are getting ourselves in a place where we're using intimidation, domination, threats to get our way, to put somebody in their place. All right. Now, that may work to bring about the change you want, but what you have done then is end the relationship. If you are ruling over someone with intimidation, you're dominating them, you're using threats of violence and maybe even violence to keep them in their place so they don't do what you don't want them to do, that is not a relationship. You have destroyed the relationship in the name of getting your own way or making the change you want. You've allowed that anger to be your strategy for bringing about change, but you've ended the relationship in the process. The other aspect of having anger as a strategy is sometimes we want to build the outrage in other people. We think that if we get other people outraged the way we're outraged, then it will bring about the change we want. We see this all the time on social media. People will be saying, this group did this, or this person did this, or look at what's happening here, and where's the outrage? And they literally ask that question, where's the outrage? They're trying to get people built up. Now, let's be honest, sometimes that is on purpose just to get popularity on social media, to get engagement. But I'm going to say that some people are legit. Okay, they're not just doing it for clicks. They're not just doing it for engagement on social media. They really do care about the issue, and they want other people to react with the same anger that they react, thinking that if we build up enough outrage with a big enough group, that it will bring about change. Again, it might, but what you're doing there is building up intimidation, domination, threats, and that's not a relationship. That's not building the kind of families, communities, nation, world that we actually are looking for. There's an idea that if we could just stamp out the people that are doing the stuff we don't want, then everything would be fine. That's usually not going to work. Again, there may be limited, extreme examples where that's necessary, but it's limited and it's extreme. If we live outrage as a lifestyle, trying to always stamp out what we are angry about and using the anger as a strategy, it's not going to work. We're not going to get the results we want. And I think we can see that. If we look at the state of our families and our communities and our nation and our world, we can see that there's plenty of anger out there. There's plenty of outrage out there. And is that working? Is that really getting us where we want to go? Now, anger is useful, but not as a strategy. Anger is useful as a signal. The reason we're angry is because something is wrong, because we are offended by something, because something is not sitting right with us in a major way. And so it is time to use that as a signal to develop a strategy. Anger itself is not a strategy. It is a signal that it's time to develop a strategy to deal with that issue. When we use anger as a strategy, we just end up lashing out, and it doesn't work. When we use anger as a signal to develop a strategy, now we're on a path where we can actually make some positive changes, where we can do something about the situation. So what's the strategy going to be? If we're using anger as a strategy, what's the strategy to dealing with those situations? Well, in general terms, the first step we need to do is take care of ourselves. If something is wrong to the place that we are angry about it and we have to react, we need to take care of ourselves. Anger is hard on the body. It's hard on our mind. It's hard on our emotions. Anger is difficult. Because of that, we need to always have as part of our strategy to take care of ourselves. Now, if it's something small, we're angry at somebody because they said something we didn't like. This is not a big world issue, not a national issue, not some kind of generational dysfunction. It's just a disagreement at work with someone, but we're angry about it. Taking care of ourselves may be as small as taking a second and taking a few deep breaths. Just taking a little time to take a few deep breaths to calm ourselves so that we could react in a positive way on our own behalf. That doesn't mean that we back down. We may defend ourselves, but we're doing it in a way that can actually help the situation, not just lashing out with anger as our strategy. Anger is the signal to develop a strategy, and that first one is, let's take care of ourselves. Take some deep breaths. Get yourself in a better place and think with a clear head, think with a clear mind in order to react the way you really want to bring about the change that you want. Now, if it's going to be a long term, okay, we're talking about dealing with family dysfunction that you are angry about and this has got to change, or you're dealing with some major community issue, or we're dealing with the struggles that we're having in our national politics and society. If we're going to deal with those things that everyone's upset about, and the one thing that we can all agree on is that everybody's upset, if we are going to deal with these things, then it's going to take a while. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some effort. And so we need to take care of ourselves. Okay? This is basic. Get some decent nutrition, get some sleep, exercise, take care of yourself, because if you are in a long-term struggle, with something you are truly angry and outraged about, it is going to take a toll on you. It is going to be a long, hard struggle. And so what do boxers do before they go into a fight? They get in shape. They work out. They watch their nutrition. They get their sleep so that they can be strong for the fight. It's the same thing on an emotional level. If we are going to be in a long-term struggle to bring about the change that needs to happen because we are angry and outraged over something that is simply unjust and cannot continue, we need to have a strategy of taking care of ourselves through that struggle. So many times we get caught up thinking with the adrenaline of everything, we can do without sleep. We can do without food and nutrition. We can just grab something on the run because we've got work to do to bring about this change. If it's going to be a long struggle, we need to take care of ourselves. Fixing long-term generational dysfunction with a family is a long struggle. So take care of yourself. If we're going to fix societal problems, we need to be engaged in that. But take care of yourself. Do the basic stuff to be healthy because it is going to be a struggle. So anger leads to a signal to develop a strategy, and the first element of that strategy is to take care of yourself. The second element of that strategy is to actually develop a strategy. Anger is not the strategy. We actually have to develop something that we believe will make sense to bring about the change we want. I remember talking with a lady one time. She came into my office for counseling and was just livid, absolutely just red with anger. And she spent a lot of time telling me the injustice that had taken place in her life and the person who had offended her and done her wrong and how things were just so bad. And I listened to all that, of course. And then I said, all right, so what change do you want to bring about? How do you want things to be different if you could change it? And she said, well, I don't know. I'm just so mad. We have to know what we want. If we want things to change, how do we want them to change? How is it going to be more positive? What change do we want to bring about? If we just are reacting in anger because we're angry, if we're just outraged because we're outraged, that's not a strategy. The signal is, first, take care of yourself because it's going to be a struggle. Secondly, develop an actual strategy. Figure out what you want to be different. Just destroying your enemy isn't going to necessarily change anything because there's just going to be a new enemy. There's always going to be problems in life. Figure out what you actually want in your life. How do you want your family to change? What actual change do you want to bring about in your community or in our society? What changes need to come about and how do we get there? The anger leads us to taking care of ourselves and then developing an actual strategy to bring about change that is needed in our world, whether in a small realm of our world or the larger society. How do we develop that strategy to actually make a change, doing the things that we believe can bring about change? And that's usually over time. Again, that's why we have to take care of ourselves, because change doesn't come easy. Then, once we have a strategy, it's easier to let go of that anger and develop a passion for your strategy. We can have a passion for bringing about that change. We don't have to be driven by anger. We don't have to be driven by outrage, because that's not a strategy that works. We can be driven by the passion we have for the strategy of bringing about that change. For example, let's imagine a married couple, and the wife finds out that her husband has been acting irresponsibly in their world of finance, that he's been spending money that she didn't know about, and he's been taking out loans behind her back. Their finances are in ruin because of his irresponsible financial behavior. Now, obviously, she's going to be angry. She's going to be outraged by that. But what is the strategy to fix that? Now, I've known couples that divorce over that, and that may be a choice people make. I'm not going to criticize that, because that's a choice that people have to make for themselves. But let's imagine they don't want a divorce. They really do want to work this out. They want to stay together, but this is clearly a problem, and she has every right to be angry about it. So she needs to take care of herself, because this is not going to be fixed overnight. She needs to take care of herself to be healthy in this battle. Then they need to develop a strategy. They have to find a way to get out of this financial ruin, okay? That's probably going to take some counseling, because if someone is acting irresponsibly in a financial way like that, it's probably some compulsion. There's probably some psychological reason why they're acting that way. That needs to be discovered. That needs to be dealt with. Then they need to work on a budget. They need to do the financially responsible things to get themselves out of that debt and to build a healthy financial life. That can become a passion, that they're working together, they're dealing with this together, they're getting a good, sound advice financially, they're working together, and they're working with maybe a financial advisor or someone in their life that can help them put the pieces of their financial world back together. And then after a while, that passion can grow. They can watch that savings account growing. They can start saving for that vacation next year and be excited about that they're going to spend cash on it rather than go into debt. They can get passionate about the solution, working together. Again, some people, that would ruin their marriage. But if you decide you're going to make this work, develop a strategy and get passionate about that strategy. We can do that in every area of our life. We can find the way to take care of ourselves using that anger as a signal, develop a strategy that will actually bring about the change that we want, and then get passionate about that change, about putting our energy into the work of making a positive change in our life, in our relationships, in our family, community, and world. I hope you see what a dramatic difference that is between using anger as a strategy, lashing out, intimidating, dominating, threatening, violence, all these things that we think will bring about change, which just brings about more intimidation and domination and violence. Or we can use anger and outrage as a signal to take care of ourselves for the long haul of making a real change. We can develop an actual strategy to bring about the change we want. And then we can let go of the anger. We can let go of the outrage and develop a passion for that change, a passion for the strategy we have to bring about that change. And that can actually be fun. We can enjoy that. We can work together on those things. We can bring about some good things. Now, that's not easy. As I run that down, that probably sounds pretty good, but it's not easy to bring about. It is going to take work. Bringing about change is not easy. Again, that's why we have to take care of ourselves. It's going to be a long haul. But if we really want it, if we really want to bring about positive change, that's the way it's going to happen. Again, if anger and outrage was going to work, it would have worked already. We've got plenty of that in the world. We've got a lot of people lashing out at each other in their families. We've got a lot of people lashing out on each other in social media. We've got a lot of people lashing out politically. If anger and outrage was going to work, it would have worked already. And so let's use the anger as a strategy. If we really want change, let that anger and outrage signal us to actually develop a strategy. Don't use anger as one. It won't work. Use it as a signal to develop a strategy while you're taking care of yourself, and then get passionate about that strategy. Passionate about your cause to bring about that change, and even have fun with it. This is what a life of love looks like. It's finding real, actual solutions. It's not ignoring the stuff of the world, the difficulties of the world. It's not suppressing our anger. It is using it in the correct way to bring about a better life. And this is what I want for you. It's what I want for myself. It's what I want for all of us. That's why I wrote my book, Learning Love, because we want to bring about a life of love. We want to have strategies that bring about healthy families and a healthy life, healthy communities, and a better world. My book is available for pre-order now, so I hope you'll go to my website, markahicks.com, and pre-order your copy today to learn these kind of things, of practical changes we can make in our life to build a better life and better relationships. Thank you for listening. Love well, everyone.